Does somebody want to read the tribal acknowledgement? I don't have it in front of me, or I would offer to do it. Let me see.
David will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I have a flag.
David, do you want to? Why don't you go ahead and I'll try and find the Lummi Pledge.
Might be muted.
You're muted, Dave.
Yeah, I was just trying to see if I could find the acknowledgement.
You could do
Thank you,
both.
Commissioner.
If you have the acknowledgement, if you wanted to do both, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, no, I don't. I would, but I don't. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I've got it. Hang on. Here, I'll do the acknowledgement first.
Cool.
Let us acknowledge we reside in the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people, who have called this place home since time immemorial. And let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Mr. Chairman, do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
America.
and to the republic
Republic
for which it stands, one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty.
with liberty
and justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so we'll do a roll call. I'm just going to call off who I see. We have Olivia Raspberry, myself, Patty Garcia, Janet Barnell, Anne-Marie Shanks, Sharon Abreu, Bill Apple, Tom Starr, Maureen C., Dave Anderson, Kyle Davies. Is that Tony Gazelle coming on there?
Looks like by audio.
Yeah. I see.
Tony, is that you?
He's muted.
Tony, is that you?
Yes, it's me. Yes, yes, it's me. Present.
Great, thank you. So, and Tony Gazelle is also here, Commissioner Gazelle. Okay. So we have minutes from the October 13th meeting and the November 10th meeting. Both have been circulated this time. So if, why don't we take up the October 13th minutes first? Does anybody have any additions, edits, concerns? If not, we would accept a motion to adopt the, or to accept the October 13th minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Bill moved, Patty seconded to accept the minutes from the October 13th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Tony, how do you vote?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you. So the October 13th minutes are adopted. November 10th meeting minutes. Any edits, changes? If not, I would accept a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Janet moved. Second?
Second.
Olivia seconds. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Any abstentions?
Tony,
Tony and Kyle both abstain. Thank you very much. The minutes are adopted. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the fourth agenda item, which is discussion and action on additional propositions and or recommendations. The two, my understanding, and I don't see Jane here tonight, so we may not have a presentation on that one. My understanding was that there was one recommendation and one ballot measure for 2022 that still needed to be adopted. That we have 8 recommendations, eight that have already been adopted and voted upon appropriately. And then there was a 9th that I thought was going to be presented by Jane Fuller that would have made a 9th recommendation that is yet to be voted on. And then onto the ballot measures, the public advocate, the CRC budget process and a budget and process and ranked choice voting have already been voted on. But there was a new initiative and referendum language. We did vote last week that we wanted to move it forward, but we did not have the language before us. That language has since been circulated. And so my recommendation would be that also needed to be voted upon this evening. Does anybody know of any other, and then we have our resolution as well that would be voted on tonight. Does anybody know of any other recommendations or ballot measures that I'm missing? Dick. And also let the record show that Commissioner Dick Grout has also joined the meeting. You're muted, Dick.
Okay. Did you mention Jane's proposal? I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
late.
I don't
Okay.
have it, and Jane's not here. So,
She told me she won't be here until about 4:30.
okay,
Yeah, but she said she is ready.
at 4:30.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me then, if I may, Commissioner Apple had raised a point with some members of the commission regarding a question about how the agenda advertised our actions. And let me back up and Bill, chime in if I'm not describing the question appropriately, but the question that was raised was that on special meetings, and so this was advertised as a special meeting, that agendas need to be more specific with regard to actions, and that is absolutely accurate. And the way our agenda reads for this agenda item, which is where we would be having action on the initiative and referendum going to 8% and being on the ballot, and then Jane's recommendation. It was advertised as saying discussion and action on additional propositions and or recommendations. The question was raised, did it need to list the specific propositions or recommendations? And when Bill raised this point with me, I thought it was a valid question. And so I spent quite a bit of time today on the phone with MRSC and also had a brief follow-up phone call with Randy. And I wanted to share with the full commission what I've learned and then raise it as a bit of a question for us. So the first thing is I spoke to Sarah Dorr at the MRSC, and in the end, she basically said the same conclusion I had when I read the statute and I read the Attorney General's, it's called, the Attorney General has something called the Open Government Resource Manual. And on page 59 of that manual, it goes into special meetings. And the conclusion from the MRSC was basically, I'm summarizing, Sarah was extremely helpful, but there was no conclusion. And with Randy, I shared with Randy all of the detail I got from MRSC, which I'll go into in a little more detail in a moment. And he had the same conclusion. He said, yeah, that could go either way. And again, I'm summarizing Randy as well, but basically we don't have clear direction on this is the way I want to put this. However, the Attorney General's manual on page 59 under special meetings clarifies that they are limited to the matters identified as the business to be conducted. That is the language that we're under with regard to our agenda. And so I will read that again. Limited to matters identified as business to be conducted. If you go back to our agenda, it says we will discuss and take action on additional propositions and recommendations. You could very clearly denote from that agenda item that we are going to take action on additional propositions and recommendations. The argument is whether or not it needs to specifically list that recommendation or amendment. And if you go back to the other thing is we did find case law. There's only been one case where a vote was thrown out under a special meeting, but it actually had, and even Randy agreed, it had nothing to do with the question we're debating. It was entirely on eminent domain, and eminent domain is another statute and requires significant public notice. And so the only case law we found was not relevant. And so one thing Randy did say off the top was he said, yes, generally special meetings need to have a more detailed agenda, but the agenda we have could very straight-faced argument say that we're just fine and we can move forward. If someone were to challenge it, it would be an interesting case. MRS, everybody I spoke to today was like, wow, this has never been looked at. So we will be the first, which San Juan County continues to wrap ourselves around the axle. So maybe we do so again. But in all the conversations I've had today, and with my reading of the statute and of the AG manual, at least page 59, I would be comfortable with us moving forward today with the votes that we had planned on these two items. And then moving forward with our presentation to the county council on Monday. If we want, and I talked to Olivia about this, we could also schedule another meeting for Monday afternoon. I don't think it's advantageous for us to try and have another meeting this week. Too many people have said, you know, this is their last day basically with the holiday and so on. So we could schedule a meeting on Monday of next week in the afternoon. And then if there is any question about this that comes up again, we could have a quick meeting and just vote on these items. But I wanted to raise all of that with you and get your thoughts on that before we move forward with any action. So I would just open it up if anybody has any comments. Bill, please.
I didn't mean to be the troublemaker. I'm one of the drafters of one of the initiatives we were going to consider. So I'm kind of in a bind, but San Juan County is one of the counties where somebody does something politically and it's like standing up and saying, hit me in court. And just as you said, we've got a series of records and trips to the US Supreme Court that we really don't need. I am very risk averse in this county. And my hope is that we can have a special meeting, even if it's 10 minutes to get this resolved and get something that is beyond, that is bulletproof. I don't like the idea of saying, well, the law isn't perfectly clear. It isn't. And having, I guess, in municipal bonds and real estate, you spend a lot of time being bulletproof because time works against you. It works against us. And I think it's worth the investment. I know it's a pain in the butt. I apologize to everybody for my conservatism, but that's how I operate. And I'm hoping we're just as cautious because San Juan County has the reputation you described.
Patty?
I noticed when Olivia sent out her meeting notice, she scheduled a special meeting for every Monday in December. So I think we've got it covered if we want to do that.
There's a formality of us presenting to the county council. We're doing that at 9 a.m. on Monday. I would encourage any of you to attend that would like to. So a week from today at 9 a.m. And if we decided we wanted to have a second meeting to really vote on these things, then I think the first time we would do that would be the afternoon following that meeting. However, the presentation to the county council is only a formality, and so we could at a meeting a week from now pass the resolution at that point in time and present to the county council our findings, and then and say that there's this, there's a fourth ballot measure and one more recommendation. If folks feel that way, I want to do whatever the commission thinks is the best route. I don't think this stalls us up to that. It just means we have to get together and look at each other one more time. But I'm all, like I said, it was funny when in my conversation, particularly with the MRSC, but also with Randy, we were both just saying, I could argue at this side, I could argue the other side very easily and very powerfully. I personally could make a powerful argument for what Bill's saying, and I could make a powerful argument on the other side.
Right.
And so how do folks feel? Do folks want to, what we could do is we could vote tonight and recognize that we need to re-vote on two of them, but at least have a straw poll, or maybe we vote tonight and say we're going forward and forget it and we're done? Or do we want to come back next week? What do folks think? Okay, I'm going to go Maureen and then Dick and then Kyle.
I'd like to vote on it now or tonight. I just feel like, I feel like I'm stuck in Vegas and this is a song that just doesn't have an ending. It's just going on, it's going on. And I would like us to conclude as soon as we can. And legally, I respect Bill's opinion so much, and I know that that would be on the side of caution. But given the way you've described it, I think we can go ahead and do this. So I'm in favor of moving ahead.
Dick?
Well, unfortunately, I think if we don't want to risk just wasting our time, we need to do another meeting, and hopefully it would last 10 or 15 minutes. And I like the idea of doing a straw vote tonight, just see where we are, and then just make it a formality next week. But I think if we go ahead tonight and say tonight is final, then we need to accept the fact that we may have just wasted our time because we'll lose in court, because I think we will get challenged.
Yeah.
Okay, Jane?
I didn't have my hand up or anything. I'm not sure what we're deliberating, so I apologize for being late.
Yeah, no worries. I'll bring you up to speed in just a second. Kyle, it was you. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I'm missing something, and please, the group or someone kind of set me back on track. If, I'm not concerned to the same extent if a decision I made tonight was somehow binding and imparted a required behavior on a group of people, it would be different. But because the recommendation still has the decision of council, and anything put forward for the ballot still has the opportunity for the public to weigh in, it doesn't rise to the same level for me. So these are offerings that we are putting forward based on our work so far, and I think that's sufficient. So I would vote, or I'd be in favor of moving forward tonight.
Okay. Jane, for your benefit, a question has come up of whether or not the agenda was specific enough when it listed discussion and action on additional propositions and recommendations. And having looked into the statute, had conversations with the MRSC and Randy, I think an argument could be made on either side of that. You could argue that we're absolutely fine and we should move forward. You could also argue that we should have another agenda and another meeting that specifically lists it. How do folks feel about going forward this evening, and we can call it a straw poll, and then we just schedule another meeting a week from today just to finalize? Are folks okay with that? Let me ask you, folks, I know that many of you said you'd rather just move forward right now, and frankly, trust me, I absolutely feel the same way. But to Dick's point, and I think Bill's point too, there's a lot of work that's gone into this second year to the initiative and referendum, and then when Jane's going to present to us. And I'd hate to see somebody challenge that, and then it just gets held up anyway. And so I don't think it's too much of a pain if we just say we're going to advertise for next week as well, and we just finalize things after the county council meeting. But I just want to know if, Dick, I think I know, I mean, Bill, I know where you are. Are there any folks that object to that?
And can I make a comment on what Kyle said?
Yeah, go ahead.
Olivia has had her hand up. I just want to mention.
Oh, Olivia. Yeah, sorry, Dick. I'm going to go to Olivia first, and then I'll go to Bill. Sorry, Olivia.
No worries. I am grateful that Bill brought this up. I think it's good perspective for us to have. Another thing that has not been brought up is if we choose to go to the county council and present on Monday and specifically say that this is not our final recommendation, that is poking the bear. And so either way, whether we choose to move forward and not end tonight by making these, the decisions and moving forward, if we choose to not do that, again, that's going to be poking the bear either way. And so we need to make our decision based around understanding that you can either do this and upset a certain group of people, possibly get sued, or the other group gets upset as well and you possibly get overturned. And so we need to think about what we're doing right now, because this is unique. This is the first time that the San Juan County Charter Review Commission has gone forward with a second round. And so when people are thinking about their decisions, we also need to think about the adverse reaction from the county council and also the voters. And even if things don't, go through, let's say that we choose to move forward and we vote to drop the initiative and referendum to 8%, we still have the opportunity to go out and try and make some changes. So either way, people are going to be upset. It just is what it is. So that's all I had to share.
Okay, I had, it was Dick and then Bill.
Yeah, I just wanted to, and Kevin, you or Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Kyle, based on what you said, I think there's a misunderstanding there. If we go forward with this meeting tonight and make a final decision, and somebody takes us to court and we lose, that issue doesn't go on the ballot. We lose. That's what happens. They stop it. So there is no vote of the voters. So I think that's something we need to keep in mind. And Kevin or Bill, correct me if you believe I'm wrong on that.
No, I think if it were challenged and successfully challenged in court, that would stop it from moving forward. But the recommendations are recommendations.
Right.
So.
Right. That's not an issue.
Bill and then Maureen.
Did you say Bill?
Yeah, Bill and then Maureen.
There are a couple things operating here. I'm kind of watching them. And I have to say, I'm there and I've been there many times for the last 50 years. The first thing we're seeing is fatigue. Let's get it over. We've had enough meetings. We have all worked very hard. But I think there's another rung to the ladder. And if you decide because you're tired to quit now, there are risks. I happen to be risk averse. The second thing is people are concerned about how they appear, how they're going to look to the council, how they're going to look to the voters. That is not our job. Our job is to propose a law that will stick. It's our only job. We have no other job. Our job is not to be rested. It is not to look good. It is to make laws that stick. And I think we need to keep our eye on why we're in business.
Thank you, Bill. Maureen.
That's a good point, Bill. What I want to say is, it seems to me that we've had a lot of meetings where we've taken a lot of action that hasn't been spelled out in an agenda. So could we get challenged on prior actions that we have made because we did not list it properly? That's a question I'd like to see if anybody knows the answer to it. Because if we set another meeting and go through it on this, why wouldn't somebody or couldn't somebody challenge us for our other behaviors in the past?
I went through many. So first of all, a lot of our meetings were not special meetings. They were regularly scheduled meetings, which you have a lot more flexibility on the agenda. And then the other thing is on our special meetings, I believe we're in good standing. Most of our meetings, I could not find a meeting where there was an action taken that was not discussed at a previous meeting. And so, we could argue that last week there was lengthy discussion about initiative and referendum, and there was a vote for exactly what it would be. And now we have language supporting that vote. And so I would even argue that one, there was public discussion a week prior. That said, I think it's important to cross our T's. So other thoughts, more Janet.
And trust me, as a not morning person, I am not really happy about suggesting this. But what if we on Monday did this vote at 7:30 in the morning? Okay. Then you can, if we discuss it tonight, come to a straw vote consensus as a 10-minute thing, you can then go to the county council fully armed with a legal vote.
I like it.
I would be supportive of that.
I like it.
Any thoughts on that?
I'm in favor.
As long as you can have a quorum without me.
What day are we talking about doing that?
Monday.
A week from today, Monday, the 29th. Kyle?
Mr. Chair, do you need that in the form of a motion
Um,
to vote on?
yeah, although I can just set the agenda, but let me, we may actually. Why don't we do this for structure? Why don't we, this evening, Jane's going to give us a presentation on an additional recommendation. And who's going to give us a presentation on the additional ballot measure on initiative and referendum? Dave Anderson?
Yeah.
Why don't we go through those in as much detail as we need? And then I'd like to see not a vote, but just kind of nodding. Like what I'd like is if we had a discussion of, is there something missing? Is there an extreme gut, adverse reaction to them? And then we can go forward with scheduling a Monday meeting at 7:30 in the morning. Let me make sure that works for me too. On the 29th. Tony, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did.
Tony, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question I have is the county council expecting us to present something to them on Monday?
Yes.
And what is their expectation? Do we know that?
Yes, we have told them that we will be presenting our final ballot measures for 2022 and recommendations, and likely a resolution.
Okay, interesting. So today, what the plan today is that we are trying to finalize those recommendations to the county council for Monday.
Those recommendations that have not been voted upon yet. So we have 8 recommendations that have already been voted upon, and we have 3 ballot measures. There is a proposal for a 9th recommendation from Commissioner Fuller, and there's a proposal for a 4th ballot measure from, I'm just going to say from Dave Anderson, but from several people.
Okay, so the question tonight is, are we going to continue with the discussion to make sure that those things are approved by the Charter Review Commission, and are we adding any more things to tonight's discussion other than those things that you just mentioned? I'm trying to wrap my head around what are we trying to accomplish tonight so that the county council can hear what we have to say to them on Monday.
Yeah, so it's the same discussion we had last week, which led, and there was discussion last week about Jane's proposal as well. So when we laid out the agenda for this evening, we said that if people had additional amendments, recommendations, they had to send them out to the commission by, I don't remember what our deadline was, but several days ago. Those were sent out and shared with the full commission. And so the idea tonight is that we would review those in detail, and then we will advertise, and this is the change that we've just come up with. And we were going to vote on them tonight and then go and present on Monday, and we'd be fine. Because of the question that's been raised and the ambiguity with regard to the law, the consensus I'm getting from the commission is that we'd rather be safe than sorry. And so we will schedule another meeting of the CRC at 7:30 a.m. on Monday, the 29th. And at that meeting, we will vote upon the recommendation from Commissioner Fuller and the ballot measure from Commissioner Anderson, and adopt the resolution at that point in time as well. So this evening's agenda will include the presentations by Commissioner Fuller and Commissioner Anderson about their 2 initiatives and any discussion that we need to have on those. And then we would close the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we are on shaky grounds for any new amendments, but I think we are good with recommendations to present to the council. I think on ballot measures, we could be on shaky grounds, and I'm not sure if Randy or the PA's office has made a statement regarding that. But I would suggest that we continue with discussing the recommendations that you are going to present to the county council. As far as the amendment suggestions that are going to be different and new, it seems to me that a Monday morning meeting would probably be a thing to do, and hopefully the next few days we'll get more clarity if that's something that we can do or not. I still think that we are on shaky grounds with amendment items, but not necessarily the recommendations items.
So,
Thank you.
Tony, I very much appreciate your consistency. I think this is the third time you've raised your opinion on that. We have other opinions on the commission, and the commission voted with a majority of the commission voting to move forward with 2022 ballot measures. So that will be happening. My understanding is we will have 4 proposed for the ballot at this point in time. But thank you for sharing your opinion again on that. I saw Patty had her hand up, but she's on mute right now. So I'll go to Dick and then back to Patty.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I had a recommendation I sent to everybody as well, and you didn't mention that. I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dick. No, it was lost. I didn't have it in my notes right in front of me. So why don't we move on with our agenda? And why don't we have Dave Anderson present the what would be the fourth ballot measure for 2022. And then we will have Jane Fuller present what would be recommendation number 9. And then Dick Grout can present what would be recommendation number 10, if I'm getting those correctly. And then we can have discussions on those. So are folks okay with us moving forward?
Yes.
Okay. So, Patty, please.
My question was just about the, gosh, is it the resolution that we're doing, that we're supposed to sign? How is that going to happen? And will we be presenting that also? And if so, how will we have signed it?
Okay, so thanks to William Jefferson Clinton, digital signatures are legally binding. And so we can all just have a digital signature on the document. If we actually want to have our physical signatures, others had talked about spinning around on the ferry or on a boat, and I think we can make that happen as well. But the resolution will be adopted now at 7:30 in the morning on Monday, the 29th. People could sign it though in preparation for that adoption. I might be able to, I would be happy to circulate it on Orcus and maybe pick it up from San Juan or Lopez or something, but I do not want to volunteer this week where I'm going to be buzzing to every island. So we have some incredible ferry employees, particularly on the inner island though. And in the past, they've helped with stuff like that.
Couldn't we just have a page for each island, like have the resolution and here are the Orcus signatures, Lopez, and just combine them all under the resolution?
Yeah.
And then no one's having to carry it around. Just someone has to hand it to you at Friday Harbor.
Yeah, someone has to get it over here.
That's okay. I can bring Orcus if somebody from Lopez could get it to Friday Harbor. That would be fine too. Maureen, you were the keeper of the resolution. Would you be willing to draft it that way with 3 pages, 1 for each island, and then I'll get Orcus's from you and we can get one to Lopez?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, let's move on to Dave Anderson's presentation on the next charter ballot amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we, I think, discussed at last meeting, we decided to move forward generally as a commission to just move that we're going to lower the signatures to from 15% of the gubernatorial voters to 8% that would be required to get an initiative and a referendum on the ballot. Should I put up the findings or should I just give some ideas about it? Would you like to see the findings here?
I think summarizing them would be good. And I apologize. 1 second, David. Jane, you had your hand up and I missed it. Did you want to comment before we get into Dave's presentation?
It was just for clarification regarding getting a page of signatures from District 3 on a paper for the resolution. So are you saying, Kevin, that the 3 commissioners in District 3 would need to sign that page, and then the actual paper needs to be brought to Friday Harbor? Is that what you're saying?
Yep. So
Okay.
Maureen will send you a page and you three sign it and give it to somebody you love to pass on to get to Friday Harbor.
Okay, and where does it get delivered in Friday Harbor?
We could have them dropped off at the county council chambers, or Maureen has her hand up. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll help with that. I'll help
Okay.
organize it. But Liz is not back until after this whole thing will be done. I don't know
Oh.
about Bob O'Connell, but I know Liz is gone until around the 9th of December.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We'll deal offline. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dave, please.
Thank you. So so we decided to only go with just the lowering the signatures to improve initiatives in San Juan County. A couple of thoughts to just remind fellow commissioners is that in the history of home rule, we've only had one initiative, and that was kind of the goal for, I think, for the initiatives and referendum committee, was to find how we can get a couple more initiatives, a little more healthy culture of having some initiatives actually get to the ballot. And so only having one, I think we'd like to see this tool, this component of our government be utilized a little bit more. So at 15%, we are the highest county of home rule counties to have, that's the highest percentage statewide. By lowering it to 8%, we are lowering it to what the state standard is. Statewide, to run an initiative, it's 8%. So we're putting it on par, and that's generally what the other counties have, is around 8%. The Secretary of State's office recommends that when collecting signatures, you gather 20% more, because there's fall off, there's people who sign twice, and maybe just people scribble. So they recommend 20% more to get enough signatures. And so it's more, and being of the highest voter turnout in the state of Washington, which is generally a good thing. But in terms of gathering signatures, it makes it more difficult here because our numbers are higher percentage wise than would be in other counties. So that we've generally at the committee, we talked about mostly that we just want to talk about percentages. We want to be lowering the percentages, but just in terms of, sheer numbers of what we're talking about in terms of gubernatorial voters, in the 2020 election, we had 13,289 voters who voted in that election. And then 15% of that, which would be the number you needed right now to get this petition on the ballot, would be 1,993 voters to get a petition on the ballot right now. By lowering it 8%, petitioners would need 1,063 initiatives on the ballot, signatures on the ballot, excuse me. So that's still 1,063. That's still a pretty high bar to get a petition on the ballot. It's definitely not easy. It's a lot of legwork in the islands with ferries. And so I think I think I mentioned last week that it's a healthy petition system is when half of the ballots who get on the ballot pass and half of them don't. It means that some ideas are going forward that voters are discerning and don't want on the ballot, don't want as part of their law, but other good ideas are moving forward through this process. So I think it's a fair amount, it's a fair number, it's not too low, and I think it would really serve the San Juan County. So I hope you support it. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for Dave? Kyle.
I wonder for Dave and anyone else that's working on this since the last election, is the sense that it wasn't favored because of the other piece that wrote along about cost and the financial liabilities piece? Do we have, unfortunately, we don't get strong exit poll information in a small town like this, but is that the strong feeling? That it would pass if it were standalone, just the percentage?
Does somebody who wrote on that opinion, right? Or I'll just say that in the voters pamphlet, they described the first two issues that were presented as innocuous, and their major criticism was the financial limitations component of the proposal. Is that accurate? Maybe some of the other people who were opposed to it might want to chime in.
I saw Maureen's hand.
Yeah, I I was raising the same issue Kyle just did. I wanted you to explain why you think it didn't pass, but I think what I've heard in our community is people didn't understand it. They just didn't totally comprehend what the other two components were. And the percentage part got kind of lost in the shuffle. That's what I've heard, so.
Just real quick, originally the Initiative and Referendum Committee proposed these as 3 different amendments. And we were mindful that people would have different opinions about all these, and we didn't want them pulled together, but it was pulled together for good reasons. And so it makes sense that we just do one right now.
Yeah.
I think Tony has his hand up.
Tony?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dave, Commissioner Dave. I'm very supportive of reducing the percentage down to whatever the number is, 8%. My preference would be 10%, but 8% is fine as well. Our main opposition was the component of financial
That's right.
situation that was our main opposition to it. And we specifically said that in our minority report, that as it stood by itself, reducing the percent down would be fine, but the financial removal of the financial situation was a problem for us. So I think if it's put back again as a ballot measure, it would probably pass with some really good numbers, I would guess. Thank you. Thanks, Dave, for your work.
Anybody else care to comment on this? Does anybody have concerns about this going forward? We will vote on it a week from today at 7:30 a.m., but I just want to get a sense from people if there's any strong objections or concerns. Bill?
I'm not objecting. I am saying that we have to remember that all of everything we did after our first submission may or may not be called into question. And that's why I'm cautious now to make sure we have belt and suspenders. But I'm in favor of moving forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any others care to comment on this? Okay, so this will.
I just one real quick comment. I want to thank Bill and Patty and Paul Dossett for being leaders in this issue and driving it forward. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Dave, for your work on it as well. I'm excited to see this one come back.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's a good idea, and it's and KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? So
Right.
okay, so with that, our next agenda item we'll have for next Monday. I'm just going to start listing this now so other people hear it, namely Olivia, who's going to help me make sure it's published. So it's going to be that we start the meeting at 7:30 a.m. We will why don't we after the acknowledgements and roll call, why don't we begin with public comment so that's done. So we'll do that first, and then we will go into a vote. And this is how it needs to be listed on the agenda. There will be a vote on the proposed 2022 ballot measure for initiatives and referendum. And that's clear enough as far as the item. So next we will go for today's meeting. Why don't we go to Jane and the presentation of your new recommendation? It's a recommendation, right? It's not a ballot measure. Okay,
That's
thank
correct. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be brief, and it's just it's concerning a new recommendation that would relate to proposition number 5 that was approved by the voters in the last election, and that's the proposition on non-discrimination and including a non-discrimination section in the charter. So that did pass successfully by the voters. We did not have any associated recommendation related to that proposition previously. We did have a recommendation related to proposition number 6 that did not pass. And so because proposition 6 did not pass, that recommendation is irrelevant. However, it was seen still as important to provide a recommendation to the county council that would outline some of the aspects of the findings of this Justice and Equity Subcommittee of the CRC and some suggested actions that the county council take related to those findings to ensure that the non-discrimination section is upheld successfully for everyone in the county. So what I did was I put together a recommendation that you all have now. And as I said, it relates to this new non-discrimination section in the charter. And really it's got 2 paragraphs that are preamble, essentially, if you will, not preamble, but they're just sort of, why are we putting this forward? And then it has essentially 4 points. And you guys would have all received this recommendation about, well, week before last, if I'm not mistaken. It was sent to everybody. So I'm going to just read to you the third sort of sentence, and then I'll introduce these 4 points for you. The third sentence reads, the onus now falls upon the county to uphold the will of the electorate and ensure that this section of the charter, that's the non-discrimination section, is implemented across the county government in a manner that is transparent and accountable to all. In this regard, the CRC recommends that the county initiate the following actions. So here are the 4 actions that are being recommended to the county council. The first is to undertake an audit of all forms of discrimination experienced by residents of the county, building on the justice and equity findings of the CRC. Okay, so the reference point there is the work that was already undertaken as part of our Charter Review Commission sort of research and all the rest of it, and that the county undertake a review of what it currently exists in the way of discrimination and what needs to be addressed and looked at in more depth. The second suggestion is to develop some kind of protocol to evaluate contractors and make sure they're meeting the legal requirements of the non-discrimination section of the charter, so that some kind of system is put in place to uphold what is clause 2 of the non-discrimination section relating to professional contractors, professional service providers for the county. The third recommendation to the county council is that they establish an advisory committee to work with the county council and government to ensure the non-discrimination section of the charter is upheld. And in this regard, that should the county council decide to do that, it would be similar to what the county council has decided to do in striking an advisory committee for their new Department of Environmental Stewardship. So this is why this recommendation is being made, is because it would create some kind of advisory body that would be able to support the county in upholding this section of the charter. And the fourth recommendation is to create some kind of system for monitoring and reporting to the public on the implementation of the non-discrimination section of the charter. So those are the 4 recommendations to the county council to sort of breathe life into the non-discrimination section of the charter that has been accepted by the electorate. Any questions?
Any questions for Jane? Does anybody have concerns with this as with these recommendations to the county council? Okay. Oh, Kyle, please.
I'm not sure they're concerns, but I do recognize that across the span of those 4, some are going to, I think we should be realistic that some are going to incur staffing time for the county more than others. And that's not a vote in favor or against, but in terms of buy-in from council and maybe other people who see this, I think that's potentially a pushback point. That's all I'll say there. So, some of those are easy to do through intention, and some of those are a little bit more complicated. That's all.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay, Olivia, please.
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Jane. I think these are critical recommendations, and I'm excited to see them going forward. And I really hope the county council will take them to heart. Okay, so the next agenda item at our 7:30 a.m. Monday, the 29th meeting will be a action item, which will be to vote to approve or disapprove the justice and equity recommendation. That's it. Stop. Okay, so let's move on to Dick. You've got another recommendation for us to consider next Monday.
Yeah, and I sent this out to all of you on the 14th, so it's been there a while. I hope you have all had time to read it. My recommendation is basically that we withdraw the recommendation about election observation. I think it's unnecessary. It won't do anything to improve election security, but it will make the lives of our 2 county election employees more difficult. I sent you a copy of the letter that goes out every election from the election supervisor to the 2 observers from the main parties. And it's quite detailed in what state law, RCW, and WAC requires. They comply with all of it. I just don't see the point. There is no evidence, for as long as I've lived here, there is no evidence of irregularities in county voting, fraud. I think it's, somebody said earlier, several meetings ago, a solution in search of a problem. And I think we ought to not do it to our elections office. So I'm proposing a recommendation that would withdraw that prior recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to comments on that, Sharon and Bill, I was on the same page with you. I was going to let him finish, however, and now I'm going to pause us and go to public comment and see if there's anybody here from the public that would like to comment. So I see one member of the public here. Would you like to address the commission?
Howdy, can you hear me?
Yes. It's wonderful. Again.
Long time no see. I've missed a couple meetings and I only have a question when I'm not sure this format will allow it to get answered, but.
Sorry, for the record, can you introduce yourself?
Alexandra Gayak, Orcas Island. And the question is, I missed the discussion about why the other innocuous part of the ballot measure that dealt with the percentages, the one about making people who were being paid advertise that event. I mean, that situation. I just wondered why that was taken out, because it seemed like it wasn't what anybody was talking about that I talked to. They were all concerned about the financial piece to it. So that was all I had to say about that.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to go back to our discussion. We typically don't get into back and forth during public comment.
I know.
But if anybody would care to comment at the end of the meeting on that, or maybe reach out to Alexandra individually, that would be great, because I think it's a very simple discussion we had around that. But why don't we go back to Dick, and then if somebody wants to comment on that afterward. So Tom, are you raising your hand for the discussion with Dick's piece?
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. First, let me say I appreciate Commissioner Grout's attendance and help all these 11 months, particularly on keeping the process moving. So thank you, Dick. But this is in response to Commissioner Grout's request that the previously approved recommendation regarding election observation be rejected. This recommendation was developed and approved properly in the election subcommittee and forwarded to the full CRC body, where it was discussed, amended, and approved on September 15th, 2021. I would note that Commissioner Grout cast the sole no vote. Mr. Grout contends that the current Washington laws regarding election observation are adequate, and that our recommendation will add unnecessary workload onto the staff. He came to this decision after a, quote, lengthy conversation with the election supervisor. If I were a supervisor of a county department, I perhaps would not be fond either of additional rules, perhaps causing additional workload and inconvenience to my staff. However, the ability to observe all the processing of ballots is critical to ensure the integrity of our elections. In particular, I will just add the observation of the signature verification process has been almost impossible to observe. The director, Camelin, the director, is willing to set up a special appointment to show you how she does it. But as a routine investigation or observation, it doesn't happen. Mr. Grout's request is out of order, too late, and a very unreasonable attempt to reverse a properly made CRC decision. I rest my case.
Thank you. Other comments? Tony?
Did you call on me, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I thought I saw your hand and then I've got Janet next.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree with Commissioner Starr's comments, but let me just say that this is really a recommendation to the County Council and to the Auditor's Office and the Elections Department. Similar to any other recommendation that we present, they're not binding. The County Council, the Commission, the Auditor, the Treasurer, whomever we recommend things to could say, you know what, thank you very much for the recommendation, but we're doing things in a certain way. This recommendation was thought through very thoroughly in the Elections Subcommittee. We looked at different ideas, different ways of doing it, and so on. So it seems to me that passing one subcommittee thoroughly, it's like I think the vote was like 5-1 or something. And then it went to the CRC and it passed almost unanimously. So for Commissioner Grout to come at the last 11th hour to say that this is to be rejected, first of all, he has to make a motion, not via email, but he has to make a motion through this commission to say that he would like to move to rescind the vote of the charter that happened some time ago. But to just say to completely say to disregard or cancel or remove that recommendation seems to me out of order and completely not proper in this particular body that we're trying to make things happen. So I would appreciate what Commissioner Grout has said, but I would suggest that we just not go there and just leave it the way it is and move on. Thank you.
Before I go to Janet, I just want to make one comment, which is as far as our rules, both Tom and Tony have said it is out of order. This discussion is not out of order. You may disagree with the line of the discussion, but absolutely within our rules, a person can do a motion for reconsideration if they voted on the prevailing side. You can also rescind a motion. And so those things can be brought forward. And so what would have to happen if this were to go forward is next Monday's meeting, where we are talking about taking action. Tony, hang on. We would have that motion would have to be put forward in a way that is in order. This discussion this evening is not at all out of order. We can talk about this and have this discussion, and I think it's really thoughtful to do so, and then consider what motions would need to be required to rescind previous action of the board or of the commission in this case. But the motions would have to be in order next week. The discussion this evening is not out of order. Janet.
So what was intriguing about Dick's wanting to rescind this was I felt there was some new information, but maybe I missed something. So to the elections committee, did you invite people from the elections department to talk about this? So this decision was just made on the gut feeling like this is the right thing to do. There is no impact. There's fraud possibly happening in our elections, and we need someone to sit and evaluate signatures as they come in, but not based on any data from the elections department. I'm just trying to understand if Dick went on his own to talk to the actual people that are handling this, but the elections committee didn't speak to any of these people before. My assumption was in all these committees that you bring in the people that are involved with this. So is my understanding the elections committee did not bring anyone in from the elections department? Yes, no, maybe we forgot.
Can I respond?
Yeah, Tony,
I guess my hand is not being seen, but
no, sorry, I was muted.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Janet, that's a good question. Commissioner Grout was actually on the election subcommittee, and that was not recommended by us. Were you? Hello?
He's saying he wasn't on the subcommittee.
I'm trying to, so no, the answer to your question is that the election subcommittee did not have a group of meetings with the auditor or the elections department. This was coming out of an experience positioned by one of our members on that committee who had experienced some of the problems that were happening in the past as a observer of elections. And I'm not speaking for Commissioner Starr, but Commissioner Starr can step in when you want. But I think that was presented as a personal experience using a process that commissioner was involved with over the years. So we did not bring in members of the elections department to ask the question. Now, at the end of the day, it could be that they're doing what is supposed to be done. That's fine. But this is a recommendation that there are certain things that we think as a subcommittee, we thought, and Commissioner Starr was involved with that, thought that there were some things that are missing. So as a group that we thought this was a good idea to present to the elections department.
I will comment that I distinctly remember when, and I believe it was when the full commission was listening to the presentation from the subcommittee, that Mylene Henley was in that meeting and spoke in opposition to this, said that her department was already doing these things and that this was nothing more than kind of and I'm summarizing, but I remember, well, that she felt this wasn't necessary at all. And so we did hear from the auditor herself at some point. I'm hoping others remember that, but she spoke in opposition to this before we voted on it as a full body. Are there others that would like to comment on this? Olivia, please, and then Dick.
I really think that this is about reassuring the voters. We are in a bipartisan country, and if this brings any reassurance to the voters, why not? You know, there's a lot of distrust in the government, a lot of distrust, period. And if this can provide them a sense of security where there's less finger pointing, it might help a little bit. And if it's already happening, fantastic. Let's put it in writing. That's my opinion. And I voted for this originally, and I will continue to vote for this.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to Dick and then Janet.
Yeah, I just wanted to, you said it, Kevin, but I just wanted to make the point that about Tony's comment about being out of order. My understanding, based on the conversation we've had so far tonight, is the proper time to make the motion would be next Monday, not tonight. That's why I didn't make a motion.
That's correct. Janet.
I respect what Olivia said. However, I think this would be creating such divisiveness of having observers sitting around on both sides, looking at signatures, fighting out. And if anything, it would cause less transparency instead of having an objective person evaluating this. I think it's setting up this county for a lot of divisiveness and a lot of fighting over, is that signature real? Is it not? Is that so?
Great. Okay. Tom and then Patty.
Yeah, I will admit I'm a poll watcher. In fact, I'm the organizer of the Republican poll watchers. And I totally dispute and disagree with Janet's characterization of it. The observers are well behaved. The law says that each party gets one. So we desperately try to do that. So, and I fully agree with Olivia's characterization. I think our electorate needs everything that they can to have confidence in us. No, we haven't had any great big problems in San Juan County, but believe me, our neighboring counties are. And I believe this measure will add confidence from the voters. Thank you.
Okay. I have to say for the record, I'm sorry, Patty, please.
I only wanted to comment that for signature matching, Carolyn told me a little bit about how they do that, and I was really impressed about how she can match signatures, even though, you know, people write differently all the time, and it's really a difficult thing, but she knows what she's doing. She's been trained. And I don't know about the observers, whether they might dispute some signature or something, but they haven't been trained. So would they need to go to signature matching training or something in order to really be valid about that? I don't know. It's just, it was impressive.
Jane.
I think Sharon had her hand up before me, so I'll wait until Sharon.
Sorry, Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, I of course voted in favor of the recommendation when it originally came down, and you know, I am very supportive of election integrity across the board. I'm just I have been in a situation as a poll watcher, not here, but as I have been in a situation in past as a poll watcher where there was disruption of the polling place. And it does concern me that I would just like to be also assured that there won't be disruption of the polling place by people who would like to see the process disrupted, as I have personally witnessed in the past. And just one more thing to say that I would request of other people that if you're concerned about election integrity, to please get involved in trying to help states that are, trying to help people in states that are very actively pursuing voter suppression at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Jane.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I was on the election subcommittee, and I did support this recommendation at the time. And then when it went to the full commission, supported it then as well. It's what Dick has come forward with in the way of information is useful information, further clarifies what the process is actually about, which is not something that was done for our subcommittee on elections. Now, I think what I'm a bit challenged by, having had this issue be raised up again, is what evidence there is that there have been problems in San Juan County. And so when I was bringing forth for the subcommittee on justice and equity the issue of the need for a non-discrimination section in our county, I did bring forward evidence of testimonials and information that we had received regarding people firsthand who'd experienced discrimination. It was clear, based on the research that we were doing, that it is an issue, even if people don't see it firsthand and don't experience it individually. And so I guess my question in a way for Commissioner Starr is, you know, what evidence is there that there is a problem that this is designed to solve? And frankly, granted, it is just a recommendation, but frankly, it actually scares me that you'd start having all manner of people from their partisan positions asking to watch a signature verification system that's undertaken by, as Patty said, a trained official. So I just think, you know, RCWs exist for a reason. They've been developed, they're followed, and all the rest of it. I have not heard any evidence from either Commissioner Starr or anyone else of the public explain to us thoroughly that there's a problem, that such a recommendation is warranted. So that's just my current questions about the proposed recommendation.
I was going to say a moment ago that one of the reasons why our Republican Secretary of State was just appointed by the Democratic President of the United States is because there is zero fraud that's taken place in Washington State. We have a very high record of being absolutely just scrupulous and fantastic with regard to how we run our elections here in Washington State. So I have not seen any of that, but I do think it's very telling that our Republican Secretary of State was just appointed by President Joe Biden to do security on elections at the national level. Any other comments on this? Okay, Anne-Marie, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Patty said, and the the manager of this department spoke with the initiative committee, which was Liz, Patty, Dave, and me, and talked about the signature gathering process and how she examines the signatures there and validates them. And I think it's a mistake to be questioning our staff about an issue which they have been doing very well.
Okay. So, Tom.
Well, I can see that our proposition is not held in favor anymore by a lot of you. But I assure you that there are numerous examples, and our election integrity committee statewide are bringing them forth. And they haven't zeroed in on San Juan County yet, but they will be. And so you're very naive in thinking that everything is okay. Because in Skagit County, they're finding hundreds of invalid voters. And as soon as that canvassing starts here, you will be surprised at what we find. So you may want to vote it down, but I think you're making a big mistake.
Okay. So the final item on the agenda for next Monday meeting on the 29th, we'll read a action, or we can say an action on the proposed recommendation regarding what do we want to call this? Voting. We can just say voting. I would encourage Dick and others who are supportive of this to consult Robert's Rules of Order and make sure you bring the proper motion forward and the right person brings the proper motion forward. Yeah, why don't we call it a vote on for the agenda item, call it a vote on the elections observation process recommendation. Am I missing anything for next Monday's meeting? Emery Shanks.
Mr. Chairman, I have been in a number of our meetings, and I think that a 7:30 meeting is really a good idea. However, based on the conversations tonight and the issues that are going to be brought forward, I don't know that you're going to get through that in time for your 9 o'clock meeting.
Well, we'll do what we have to do. In my boat, I can be to Friday Harbor in 10 minutes. So I will be leaving Deer Harbor at 8:30 in the morning, I think with some other Orcas commissioners. So hopefully an hour will be sufficient. And we'll just have to see what we can do. I think we've had a good amount of discussion tonight. So my hope is that we're not getting into discussion on Monday, the 29th. We're going straight into the votes. Janet.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I think this was the evening. If people still want to discuss, we still have 45 minutes, discuss things. Tonight is the night to actually do the discussion. And then on Monday, I think we just vote one way or the other, it's resolved, and not have, not relitigate everything we've talked about tonight or say exactly what we just said.
And actually for that reason, I'm going to switch something unless somebody objects. I would like to move the public comment to after we vote, just so we can get the votes out of the way. And if some of us have to leave for the other meeting, we can do so. So let's do it that way. And let's not put a time on the public comment. It will be that public comment will commence following the other agenda items. Patty, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to address what Alexandra did, but it's sort of, when the initiative proposal, when we got together again, Dave and I got together to see about reworking it and other people, and we left off the thing about paid signature gatherers, because it sort of can be a law. I mean, the council can actually make that into a law. It doesn't have to be part of the charter to say that paid signature gatherers have to have this, whatever, but it could be something enacted by the council. So it just occurred to me that maybe we could make that into a resolution too, although I didn't think about it beforehand. Or the council can just take that up if they want to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for circling back on that, Patty. Okay.
Mr. Chair. You mentioned earlier about taking straw polls tonight, and that to, I think, Anne Marie's point in terms of continuing discussion and having a better idea of what we need to do, what we might be seeing on Monday morning. I think straw polls might be something we could use.
Yeah. So I kind of did a reverse. I asked if anybody had strong objections to the ones that were put forward. The other thing is I'm channeling Bill a little bit. And I'm a little cautious now that we've decided as a body that we will take action on Monday. I really didn't think that we should even have our hands up and say that we're taking a vote, because that can be perceived as moving toward action. So I asked and people responded. I said, does anybody have any adverse reaction to this or any concerns? And people raised them. I think we're going into Monday as eyes wide open as we can at this point. But as far as the actual straw poll, I kind of pulled back from that a little bit, but thank you for allowing me to clarify that. And if anybody's concerned about that, tell me so. Dick?
I'm wondering, because we've had the discussion and Janet made the point, we still have more time if people want to use it. Can we set up the agenda for Monday so it is only action and not discussion?
Yeah,
so we do.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, so that we make sure we get all that discussion tonight. We've had a lot on mine. Anybody wants to discuss those things, we do it tonight, and we designate the Monday meeting is strictly to take action on those items.
The agenda as it is has the items that we listed. And there, when you put a motion on the table, under our rules, discussion is allowed. And so somebody will put a motion on the table, there will be a second, and there will be discussion. And then we will
Good
go.
point.
Tom, I saw your hand.
Well, I need to hear Commissioner Grout's motion. And I don't really want to wait till Monday. So this presents a real problem. Here we're supposed to consider some stuff. We don't even have the clear motion. So I'm confused.
It sounds like Commissioner Grout is putting forward a motion to rescind or reconsider the action that was taken by the full Charter Commission. So that will be the motion that will be put forward. I think it's pretty clear from the discussion we've had that some people feel one way, some people feel another, and there'll be some sort of motion put on the table, and any commissioner can put a motion on the table. And then they'll see if it gets a second. If it gets a second, then we'll go into discussion, and then there'll be a vote, and the majority will win that vote. Bill, please.
Sound.
Unmute, Bill.
I think anything with a whiff of a vote has got to be avoided at this meeting. The only reason we're out of order under Robert's rules is because of the statute. Because normally you don't have discussion until there's a motion. But we can't do that today because motion would be an action that is prohibited. So the motion would be on Monday morning. I think a straw poll is extremely dangerous. It puts us, it's going to change the tide on this thing. And I think we have to wait till Monday. I don't think we can just vote. And we cannot foreclose discussion unless somebody moves the question. And that's a separate issue. I think we've got to be careful to draw the line between what we're here for today and what we're here for on Monday. But if we vote alone and foreclose all discussion, I think we're shamming and or looking like it. I think we have to be careful here.
That can't happen under our rules. I'm going to ask Tony and Bill to help me for a second. And thank you for being willing to. And I understand, Tony, at least you feel different about, you're on a different page than Dick is on the motion, but just procedurally help me out. I can't remember. Reconsideration is somebody voted on the majority. So Commissioner Grout would not be able to do a reconsideration, but he could rescind, but doesn't rescind have to be advertised? Or I
Mr.
can't remember. I'm looking through my notes.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yeah, reconsideration cannot happen. It's too late. Reconsideration has to happen either at the same meeting or a few meetings or a few days after that meeting as a special meeting. So the reconsideration word should no longer be used with this particular event. What we should use is a rescinding of the previously passed motion by the CRC, and rescinding without any announcement has to have a 2/3 majority. With announcement has to have a simple majority.
That's right.
Thank you, Tony. I couldn't find
One
that.
other thing, Mr. Chair, it's a two-step process. Rescission and then the new motion. It's not a one-step process.
Yeah, I've got that. So yeah, in the agenda that will be published, we're going to publish for that third item. It will say consideration of rescinding previous motion, and then it will have been advertised. So then it's only a simple majority. Tony, thank you for the reminder on that. I couldn't find my notes. Okay, with that, anything else tonight? There's Sharon.
I just want to make sure that we make sure the 4 commissioners that are not on this meeting watch this video and understand what's going on here, because can you imagine David Dellendorf only finding out about any of this on Monday morning?
Sharon, can you take it upon yourself to email them, please, and tell them to watch the video?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anything else this evening? Jane.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification on getting those signatures from the 3 of us on Lopez Island. So can I talk to you and or Maureen about that separately?
Yeah, Maureen's going to take a lead on that. And so Maureen, can you call or email leads on each island and help coordinate that?
Yes, you're the lead on Orcas, right?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I don't know where Bob is. I think he may be out of town and unavailable. And I know that Liz is unavailable.
I heard he's on Waldron, which is pretty much out of town and unavailable. So
same thing. And David should be available. So anyway, we'll talk.
Okay, great. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is, if we're done with business, this is slightly unrelated, but I just want to.
I have one more thing on charter business, but if yours is still charter, then please go ahead.
It's not charter, it's something unrelated, but I'd like to say something if it's okay with you when you allow me to do that.
Okay, why don't you go ahead?
I just want to say to my friends in Friday Harbor that Orcas Island just won the whole thing in the state for soccer, and Friday Harbor came out not too bad, very impressive, 4th position, but Orcas was number 1. So
yay, congratulations. Well done.
Well stated, Tony, well stated.
We have a daughter here who plays.
And of course, Commissioner Fuller had a daughter playing for Lopez. Lopez was really did a very good job. So I appreciate all the county teams doing very well.
And thank you to Mr. Gazelle for reffing, and yeah, it was really neat to we didn't like getting killed by Orcas at like 12-0. It was a pretty bad defeat, but anyway, congrats to Orcas.
Kyle, did you have something?
I do. It doesn't have structure, and now it no longer includes Commissioner Gazelle, but for the record, I don't know how to do it, but I really want to, and there won't be time, I think, next Monday. I'd like to figure out a way offline to have a social recognition of the group and the group's work. I won't take up any more county time now, but I'd like to consider it and maybe have it here on San Juan, but I'm open to it. So I'd love just a show of hands of maybe subcommittee people who would help maybe sort of organize that if it's interesting to people. Great, 2 hands is perfect. That was it, thank you.
Great idea to actually have us together in person once would be nice. So the other thing I was just gonna raise is there's Actually, you know what? I'll wait till next week. We'll just end it now. That's fine. I want to thank you all, though. We are now, I believe, very, very close to being done. It is fantastic that half of our ballot measures have passed and they will be certified, I believe, tomorrow. It's also important to point out that San Juan County now, and I've done quite a bit of research on this and have been contacted by some national media, we now have the strongest anti-discrimination policy in the country.
Woo! Wow.
And I really want to thank Commissioner Fuller and Commissioner Davies for chairing that subcommittee and doing the monumental work that they have done.
Fantastic.
So the other thing I'd say while I'm on it is on the environment. I also think that we really won. The county council did everything we wanted to do. They have now formed a climate committee, or they are forming a climate commission, and they created the department. And so I think our work has been tedious and difficult at times, but the end product looks to be good, and I hope we'll see the same results in the 2022 ballot. So thank you all so much. I would love a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair.
You have something else?
I do have one quick question on something I would put on the record. If I may. I have been thinking a lot about the structure. We have not looked at many structural things in our commission, and I have asked some questions of the MSRC. I just want to let people know about the nature of whether or not we can have a secondary legislative branch. I think that our commission has often functioned as a check on the county council, and I think we've proven that this kind of function, this online unpaid politicians who can work together and write legislation. And I think that we've proven that there is interest in this county for a legislative check on county council. So I've put some of those ideas to Steve Gross of the MSRC, and I look forward to hearing about him. And I hope that we can put that as a part of the record of this commission going forward, not necessarily part of the report to the council, but just a part of the public record of this commission.
Excellent, excellent. And what I would say is make sure
Thank
Steve,
you, Dave.
yeah, thank you for that. I would make sure Steve gets back to you before we turn in our resolution and finish our work, because after that, you're no longer a client of the MRSC. And you can't just call them. So you've got another week to get information you need, and then you're out.
Right. Yeah, we'll do.
So motion to adjourn. Somebody? Dick?
Adjourn.
Okay, and Dave, we're going to call you the second. Okay, we are adjourned. I want to thank you all for a really productive conversation this evening.
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Night,
you.
everybody.
Good night.